Joining me now for our national security update, because it always moves fast when it comes to Russia, Ukraine, China. We have to have regular visits with our national security correspondent, David Pine of dpine.substack.com. David, welcome back to the broadcast. Hope you had a nice, relaxing weekend. But boy, you're all over it on your X account today. Let's start out with this one here. I actually think the origins of the Russian invasion of Ukraine in 2022 have more in common with Hitler's invasion of Poland in 1939. Russia's decision to invade Ukraine was in response to NATO's de facto expansion into Ukraine, much like Hitler's invasion of Poland was a direct response to the UK and French decision to militarily guarantee Poland and bring it into the World War II equivalent of NATO. Both wars were begun to determine the geopolitical alignment of the nation being invaded. Pick it up there, please.
Hey, Brad, great to be with you. Hope you had a great weekend as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, so from the beginning of this conflict, I recognized some very interesting similarities between Putin's invasion of Ukraine and Hitler's invasion of Poland. Not in their entirety, but just in the initial origins in terms of, with Putin, he wasn't really primarily about territory. It was primarily about, returning Ukraine to its, pre-2014 neutral status as a neutral buffer state between Ukraine and NATO, and rolling back the Ukraine's de facto NATO membership that began in November 2021 when Zelensky signed a strategic partnership agreement with the U.S. And in the case of Hitler, he'd been trying to pursue an alliance with Poland against the Soviet Union, which was really the only country he ever wanted to invade outside of, I guess, Czechoslovakia. And he was in response to that, he had stupidly broken the Munich Pact, and that caused Chamberlain, as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, to overreact and guarantee Poland, and of course, French did so as well, and that really closed the door on any diplomatic negotiations that could have averted World War II and averted war between Germany and Poland. And even after the war, the day after he invaded, he offered to withdraw from all of Poland except for the Polish Quarter, which was 4.3% of Poland's total territory. And similarly with Putin, he actually offered to withdraw from all of Ukraine's pre-war territory. That, of course, would exclude the Donbass People's Republics, which were about 3% of Ukraine's territory, and Crimea, which was 4%. But nevertheless would have restored Ukraine's pre-war borders under the Istanbul Agreement of April 2022. And we refused that agreement. So I'm not trying to justify either dictator's invasions, but in terms of their actual territorial, attempts or demands, they were fairly minimal, and they were really directed towards changing the geopolitical alignment of the countries being invaded. In both cases of Poland and Ukraine.
Interesting history. Let's go to this article. You put a tweet out about it today, so I read it. The U.S. defense industrial base is not prepared for a possible conflict with China. This is a very interesting article over at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. And I guess they show that air campaign on day 5. I don't know if they have day 1. It'd be nice to see day 1. Where's day 1? But anyway, they go through how many missiles would be used. And the bottom line is it wouldn't go so well for us, right?
Yeah, that's right. The U.S. has a very finite and limited number of precision strike munitions, particularly long-range precision strike munitions. That would include the SM-3, the SM-6 air defense missiles. It would include anti-ship missiles, Tomahawks, and other precision strike munitions. And, we've been using a lot of those, sending them to Ukraine, obviously, as well as using them up primarily in combat against Yemen and the Houthis. And it's really been, a big mistake, I think, strategically, because our production capabilities of long-range precision strike munitions, particularly naval strike munitions such as Tomahawks, is really pathetic.
So
It's
by
just
day
really
by day 10, we're
very
at
low.
that graphic was showing. Sorry to interrupt. That graphic was showing by day 10 we're out of missiles.
Well, I think it's even worse than that. I mean, there's been multiple studies, including most recently a congressional war game that estimated that the U.S. would run out of those long-range precision strike munitions in less than a week of intense combat operations. So we're talking maximum 7 days. We'd be out of all those missiles. And what happens after we run out? I mean, our Navy ships, they're already trying to be outside of Chinese anti-ship missile range, but once they run out of those missiles, they're pretty useless. I mean, they're just sitting ducks. They're like targets. So we'd have to withdraw them probably beyond the second island chain, or at least outside anti-ship missile range of about 1,000 to 1,100 miles that the Chinese have from their coastline.
So how did we get to this problem, David? Was this giving so many munitions to Ukraine during the 4 years of Biden? How did we get here?
Well, this is really all about the globalization, de-industrialization process that we began shortly after the end of the Cold War. There was a decision, you and I remember it, of course, as the peace dividend. President Bill Clinton was elected, and he was kind of the first post-Cold War president, and he decided to slash the budget, I think the defense budget, by somewhere around 25% over his term. And that was one thing, to reduce our defense budget, but we also, at the same time, we had a huge number of defense contractors producing various weapon systems, and those began to consolidate. And at the same time, much of our defense industrial base was shipped out to other countries, primarily China. So we had a very strange situation where our number one potential enemy, China, still communist, unrepentant, was getting a huge portion of our, high-tech dual-use defense manufacturing capabilities. And, we were losing those capabilities at the same time. So, for example, we only have, in all of the U.S., we have one tank manufacturing plant. I think it's at Lima. And that plant has not produced any new Abrams tanks, I think, since the end of the Cold War. It's outrageous. We simply take old Abrams tanks and kind of retrofit and modernize them to a higher, more advanced capability. From what I had, which was non-digitized, M1A1 tank back in the early to mid '90s, is what I served on, to the fully digitized version, which is kind of the M1A2 or equivalent version. That's up to date. But and then we only have one 155 millimeter ammo plant, and that plant has suffered fires, which are likely Russian sabotage, that took it out of commission for at least 3 weeks. So there's a lot of points of vulnerabilities, but the primary reason actually isn't that we shipped a lot of our missiles to Ukraine. It's actually that we stopped producing, and we vastly decreased our capabilities for producing those missiles and ammunition. Well, at the same time, China and Russia have ramped up theirs to a massive extent.
So obviously you're concerned. I mean, how concerned are you if this thing escalates? I mean, I guess let me answer your question with another article or another tweet by you today, because you actually said, if leaders want to know what the U.S. and EU would look like immediately after a war with a Sino-Russian alliance, one has only to look at the modern day Gaza. Tell me about this.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at what Israel's done to Gaza, whether you think it's justified or not, I'm not trying to get into that with this post, but they've suffered 7.5% of their entire population has been either killed or wounded. They've lost 2/3 of their buildings, not just homes, but just buildings within their cities that are business related. And then they have 85% of their population that's become refugees, and hundreds of thousands of those are starving to death. I did a comparison on what the actual numbers would be on the U.S. side. It would be in excess of 200 million refugees, American refugees, if we were to apply those same percentages to the United States. So it's a level of devastation that we find it hard to comprehend, and that's why Trump talks about Gaza as just a kind of a post-apocalyptic wasteland, and it pretty much is, and it's very sad. I'm kind of smirking a little bit, but it's the devastation that we see there is what we would very similar to what we would face in a post-EMP or a post-cyber attack situation, even if our buildings survive.
Let's talk about Putin. President Trump definitely not happy with Putin right now. I reported on it on my Worldview Report tonight. He said he's angry, but that the anger could quickly subside if a deal could go forward. Tell me, what is it that Putin is dug his heels in on? What specific points?
Well, I think Trump's referring to the ceasefire. He's really been pushing this 30-day ceasefire, and you and I have had a lot of conversation on this show. That I think that's kind of a diversion. It's really unnecessary. We don't need to have a 30-day ceasefire. We can negotiate a peace deal with Russia and then immediately begin a ceasefire that's not temporary but rather permanent. And we can do so by pressuring Ukraine to sign the agreement with minimal changes, unless with the option that if they don't, we'll cut off Starlink access and then their front will collapse. And I think that would be the trigger point, the pressure point, which we actually could get Zelensky, who's been amazingly stubborn and really the main obstacle to peace, to get him to finally agree to end the conflict. And there's really no advantage that Ukraine possibly could have by prolonging the war unnecessarily, as Ukraine has done. I mean, every year Russia's terms get worse. Every year, they lose 30. Ukraine's lost 30,000 casualties a month. They just can't sustain it, and their military is crumbling. It's being decimated by Russian forces. Some Ukrainian battalions that typically have 500 troops in terms of their end strength, they're down to 50 troops. And instead of commanded by a lieutenant colonel, they're commanded by a senior lieutenant, which is the equivalent of kind of a junior captain on the Ukrainian side. So it's really, we don't really get the picture. Not even Elon Musk seems to understand that the degree to which Ukraine is losing the war. But I think Trump does to a substantial extent, probably not to a full extent. But this is something that needs to end. And it needs to end by, the only way it can possibly end peacefully is by Trump accepting most of Russia's terms. And based on the statements of his top cabinet officials, I think the U.S. is willing to do so. But the problem is we haven't actually had the negotiations, to negotiate those specific terms because we've been kind of diverted by this whole ceasefire focus, which is just completely unnecessary. I was reading my history about the Korean War, and the Korean War was actually the armistice agreement took over 24 months to negotiate, and the entire time we were having a hot war. There was no ceasefire whatsoever. We were fighting and killing each other with the Chinese and the North Koreans during that entire period.
President Trump, as you tweeted out, has decided to move the 101st Airborne Division to a new base in Romania. Why?
Well, that's the real big question. If you read this here, so they had the secret, the secret classified Hegseth memo that leaked, and we can talk about that later. But the Heritage report from which it was based on essentially said that the U.S. should actually surge forces and even nuclear weapons. Well, it doesn't say surge troops. It says move our nuclear weapons from Western Europe all the way to the kind of the Russian border with Finland and Poland, as well as Romania, which borders on Ukraine. So, and then there have been other statements by the Trump administration that threats to withdraw 35,000 U.S. troops from Germany and move them to Poland. So all of those, this is kind of a bipolar, if true, and it's possible that these won't be implemented, although reports indicate they likely are being implemented. It's kind of a bipolar foreign policy, because on one hand, Trump is trying to withdraw us from NATO, not fully, but partially and pull back the number of troops from Europe while making peace with Russia to neutralize its alliance with China. But on the other hand, we're surging military capabilities to Russia's border that are going to make them think that we're not negotiating in good faith, and we're trying to threaten them with war and greater security issues than they had previously before the Trump administration took power.
Okay, what do we know about? Well, here's one headline: Putin's limousine reportedly explodes in Moscow after Zelensky predicts his death. What do you know about that?
Yeah, so Zelensky made some cryptic comments. He said that Putin won't, he's going to die soon, and so the war will soon be over. And then within 3 days, we had this explosion of one of the limousines that Putin keeps in his entourage. And essentially what he does, Putin is very paranoid. And so what he does is he has multiple limousines, and they all look the same. So no one knows which one is the one that he's in, or even if there's any top Russian officials in the decoy limousines. And it's unclear whether Putin was even in the vicinity when this occurred, but it's certainly possible that Putin was. It reportedly occurred in front of FSB headquarters. So this does seem like a Ukrainian terrorist or assassination attack. It's being sold as some kind of purported, Russian internal battle. But obviously, it's definitely Zelensky that he's, perhaps sending a message to Putin that he might be willing to try to assassinate him. And of course, the response from Putin is going to be, well, I can take you out, with a Russian missile or a nuclear missile against Kyiv at any moment. So it's not a good situation. But once again, I think it's part of Zelensky's plan to try to get Russia to escalate to the point where NATO feels it needs to intervene militarily, and we already see that. The UK and France are in open discussions with Ukraine about moving tens of thousands of UK and French troops into Ukraine, and perhaps even before the war is over, to send combat air cover over Ukraine, along with increased naval forces in the Black Sea.
I mean, this is a big story. It's kind of, I know March 30th, that was yesterday, it was a Sunday, but the story hasn't got a lot of traction. Have you seen it around? It really hasn't gotten the attention I would think it would get. Have you seen much on this?
I've only, it's primarily been kind of on social media. Mm-hmm. There have been a lot of discussion on social media, but I've seen very little in the mainstream news.
Exactly. Why?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think that it's possible that the liberal mainstream media wants to play down Ukrainian involvement and try to escalate the war and get us into World War III, and portray Zelensky as a man of peace, which we know he's not.
So this breaks the narrative. This breaks the corporate media's narrative. Just think about that in America, from the limousine of our president. If one of those was targeted, this would be wall-to-wall coverage for 3 or 4 days until something else pushed it off the news. But if that was not something electrical that started it, and it doesn't, from the reports I'm reading, doesn't seem to be the case, but we'll see. But if that was not electrical, was not an innocent situation there, doesn't that show you that Zelensky is working with some group of people inside Russia and maybe even the Russian government? In other words, are there people in key places that Putin is worried about who want to see him gone?
No. I just read an article on that today. Actually, I think it was some kind of YouTube video with some experts, and talked about how Putin's very secure. Actually, it was a former Russian defector. And she's actually excellent. She's a former DIA analyst, Rebecca Koffler, and she talked about all the rumors, that Putin's dying or something to that degree, because that's kind of the impression that she got from the Zelensky comments, is that he wouldn't die of an assassination plot. He was dying of natural causes. But she had this discussion, same thing discussion that I had recently with a colleague that Zelensky was saying that Putin was dying of terminal cancer back in 2022, and then in January 2023, he actually stated that Putin had died, and Russia was being led by a body double for Putin. And apparently, Russia's winning the war quite decisively with their body double. So apparently that's worked out real well for them. But this whole discussion about Putin dying or being near death or being super sick. I mean, he's in tremendous health for his, he's 72, as Rebecca Koffler stated. The average age of Russian men, their lifespan is 57 years. So he's well beyond the average lifespan of Russians, and he has a lot of great health habits in terms of exercise, low alcohol consumption, et cetera. That's
okay. So if he doesn't have to worry about somebody in his own government, a coup, if you will, then what does this mean? If someone could get that close to one of his limousines, are the Ukrainian special forces, are our CIA, or MI6? I mean, this comes at a pretty high skill set level, does it not?
Well, I think you raised an excellent point. I don't think it's CIA because President Trump's the president. He would never authorize or allow that to occur at this point. Certainly Biden could have conspired with the Ukrainian SBU to have these types of attacks occur. But I would say MI6 would be the most likely foreign collaborative partner in terms of foreign intelligence for this suspected Ukrainian attack. But it's disturbing because Russia does have, according to the Ukrainian leaked Ministry of Defense report, 16,000 nuclear weapons that are operational, far in excess of the number of nuclear weapons that the U.S. has, and they'd only need probably just one over Kyiv to put the fear of God in Zelensky and force him to capitulate. So that is not at all off the table. In fact, the new U.S. intelligence assessment report that was issued just, I think, last week said that Russia may in fact still opt to use its non-strategic nuclear weapons if it feels that it's not accomplishing its objectives fast enough. So it's not before it said if Putin felt he was losing the war. Now it just says if he's not winning fast enough. So that's very conceivable that Putin might feel he's not winning fast enough and might decide to pop a nuke over Kyiv to end the conflict.
Well, if someone tried to assassinate Putin on the Kiev side, I can't see Putin sitting still for that without tit for tat. Can you?
Well, I don't know, because Putin has a reputation for being an extremely rational and restrained leader. His strategic forbearance is beyond amazing. If any U.S. president, virtually any U.S. president, would have prosecuted this war in Ukraine with much more ferocity. And what I'm saying is, we wouldn't be satisfied with four or five Ukrainian oblasts. We would have bombed and occupied the entire country by now and installed a U.S. puppet government to ensure that Ukraine never threatened the U.S. again. And that's what we would have done, I think, if Russia converted Canada into a military ally and stationed nuclear-capable missiles in Canada and started bombarding U.S. cities with those missiles. So. I don't think it's, what I'm saying is, even if Putin thought that his life was targeted, I don't think he necessarily would overreact or react harshly in response, so long as he perceives Russia as winning and achieving its strategic objectives in Ukraine.
Well, don't forget, we also had a general assassinated going to his car, or I can't remember if he was going to his car, coming from his car, but right out in front of his own home.
Yeah, and there's an article, really great article that came out today. I think it's called in the New York Times, the secret war that the U.S. has fought with Ukraine against Russia, the Russian invaders, and it goes into great detail about how the U.S. has been involved to a far greater extent than has been reported. And this is what Putin's been saying the whole time: is that basically, the U.S. is providing all the targeting information and intelligence to Ukraine, both satellite and intelligence related. And they're almost, some of the technicians are even, he believes they're pulling the trigger because it's so difficult to operate these types of long-range missile systems that the U.S. has given Ukraine, such as the ATACMS systems. But we've really been, helping the Ukrainians assassinate low-level Russian generals. We killed, I think there was a list at one point that had about 15, but actually I think only 7 were confirmed. I think the other ones were probably disinformation, but even 7 or 8, low-ranking Russian generals, that's a big deal. And this article also says that, Ukraine is saying 700,000 Russian soldiers have been killed. I think it's actually closer to 100,000, but even 250,000 Russian casualties that have been incurred primarily because of U.S. support. I mean, if we had done the same, if Russia had done the same thing to us and killed or wounded 250,000 U.S. troops, does anyone believe we wouldn't be in a nuclear war by now?
Exactly.
I'm sure we would have had a nuclear response.
Well, speaking of nuclear, we got EMP. Look at this headline. Peter Hitchens, warmongering Keir Starmer is marching us all to a nuclear exchange. And here's why the Russians could win one without killing a single person. And of course, he has to be talking, you have to pay, but he has to be talking about EMP, right, David?
Yes, he is. Absolutely. That I actually posted a post by him on X, where he does actually reference super EMP weapons as being a game changer that very few people are aware of. And so I'm grateful to him for trying to raise the profile of that issue because, the truth is if the U.S. went to war with Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea, each one of those countries have either super EMP satellites, orbital nukes with super EMP capabilities, or ICBMs with super EMP warheads they could use to take down all U.S. critical infrastructure with little to no warning and kill 250 million Americans over a 12-month period. So that applies not just to the U.S., of course, but to NATO as well. And our late friend, Dr. Peter Pry, warned about that in an article I think he published around 2021 or early 2022, that it would only take one well-placed, super EMP weapon that Russia launched at NATO to take down all of NATO and win a war in a matter of minutes.
All right. How about this final one? There was a recent poll in which 15% of all non-citizens admitted they voted in a recent election. Given that there are 51 million non-citizens in the U.S. today, that amounts to over 8.7 million legal and illegal immigrants, the vast majority of whom voted Democrat. The amazing thing is, despite this brazen Democrat attempt to steal the last 3 national elections, President Trump still won. Well, this is why those who say we're back and are, really excited that all of our problems are behind us, we don't know what's going to happen in 2 years. They get a bunch of illegals to roll out in 2 years, and then President Trump is the lame duck for the next 24 months. And then they steal the election 2 years later from Vance. So we're in a very crucial window to fix this system. True?
Absolutely true. Yeah, and President Trump has, he just signed an executive order to require proof of citizenship for anyone voting. So the Democrats screamed bloody murder that was disenfranchising millions of voters. And of course, the millions of voters they're referring to are Democrat voters who are non-citizens.
Which would disenfranchise American citizens, canceling out their votes.
That's right. Yeah, so we don't care about the non-citizens being disenfranchised. Every single vote, let alone millions of votes, disenfranchises and dilutes the votes of the American people, and can result in electing leaders that the majority of American voters opposed. So that's exactly what I believe happened in 2020, and thankfully, Trump was able to prevent that from stopping the steal from happening in 2024.
Here it is. If you want to follow him on X, there's his handle, @AmericaFirstCon, @AmericaFirstCon. You can also follow him on Substack, dpine.substack.com, dpine.substack.com. As always, David, we appreciate our visits with you.
Thanks, Brad. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you, my friend. David Pine checking in tonight. I'm sure we'll have him back before the week is over because things are moving awfully fast, are they not? Can we go to the dolly cam, my friends? Can we go to the dolly cam? There she is. Why that dog likes to sleep hanging off the My Pillow pet bed, I have no idea, but she sure does, doesn't she? Yep. Well, guess what she had this morning on her food? Can I show you what she had this morning? Go to worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Scroll down the page until you find the Gatatana. There it is. It moves around. The banners move around. There it is. Open it up. She gets a half a scoop on her food every day. I get a full scoop, which these are very, very small scoops. For those of you that have not ordered this, you'll be shocked at how small the scooper is. So when we say she gets a half a scoop, it's not very much. When I get a whole scoop, it is still not very much. But even one scoop, as tiny as it is the equivalent of 90 billion plant cells. And of course, you can give it to your pet and it helps to fight things like, well, look at that cat had a tumor in its eye, got on this, gone. So there you go. I love it. And by the way, let me show something to you just to remind you guys. If you want to pull that down, let me show them something else. I'll pull up another screenshot here. This is, don't forget, this is this article, there you go, that was in the paper up in Canada back in July 6, 2005. This is how this all started. He was just raising this phytoplankton for his shellfish. Then he was given a terminal diagnosis, started eating it right out of the container himself. His daughter, who's pictured there, was like, are you crazy? You don't know what this is going to do to you. Went in for surgery. They did some biopsies. They found the lungs. He had melothelioma or melothelioma, or however you say it. And his lungs were covered in some kind of white film. He's on video talking about it. We played it. They did 11 biopsies, came back benign. He lived another 10 years. So David Hunter started producing this into a powder and making it available. And now we offer it. MelissaHouseGPA.com, MelissaHouseGPA.com. I don't give medical advice. I'm not a medical doctor. But I'll tell you what I would do personally, my personal thing, what I would do. If I ever got one of those diagnoses, I would take 5 scoops in the morning in water, and I'd take 5 scoops at night in water. That's what I would do. And then I would be swishing like crazy with my Numi to detox the cells. That's what I'd be doing. So Melissa House GPA, get a subscription and save. There are 5 clinical trials behind this. This is not a joke, folks. Your health is not a joke. And of course, people that are sick and very sick know they'd give almost any amount of money to get their health back. Because if you don't have your health, what do you have? I know people that are in their 90s that are very wealthy. Guess what they talk about all the time? Not their money. They talk about how little time they have left. They're like, I have something I cannot buy, time. And some of these guys I know, they are so intrigued by all that's happening in the world. They don't want to leave. They're enjoying their kids, their grandkids, their great-grandkids. And they love watching what's happening, and some of it they don't agree with, obviously, they're distressed over. But all the things going on, they're so intrigued by all the new developments and the technology and watching everything that's happening and enjoying their family. And a couple of these guys are really wealthy, but they say, what I don't have is time. Well, other guys I know are sick, and they're well off. And they'll say, I'm very well off, but I can't buy my health. You can't buy time. You can't buy health. You can't buy it. But you might be able to extend your life and have a healthy life by eating well, using food as medicine. I sent an article to Dr. Lana. We're going to cover it Tuesday nights. You know, she comes on here and visits with us on Tuesday nights. And if I can find it, I'll tell you what the headline is real quick. Very interesting article about all that's in our food. Yeah, here it is. Actually, I guess I sent this today. Woman, 84, is, quote, cured, end quote, of terminal lung cancer. And shocked doctors have fascinating theory. Well, what she was doing was learning to boost her own immune system. She defied all expectations to receive her 100th immunotherapy dose. She was boosting her own immune system, people. Food is medicine. So again, do what I do. That's my opinion. Do what I do. Do what Melissa does. Do what Dolly does. We take Gatatana every day. Okay? MelissaHouseGPA.com. While we're on it, we can go back there because the other trifecta, that's one of the three trifectas. The other one, of course, is Bella Grace, and I take this every day as well. The elixir loaded with the Gatatana, loaded with the collagen, peptides cut short, your body absorbs it. The astaxanthin, which is loaded with antioxidants that crosses the brain-blood barrier. And then the cat's claws, anti-inflammatory. Melissa loves the skincare. She's crazy about the skincare. You'll see her own personal endorsement there. Melissa would not use this if she didn't like it. She just doesn't play those games. She wouldn't endorse it if she didn't like it. She wouldn't endorse it if she doesn't use it. Well, I see her getting ready in the morning when she's at her sink and I'm at mine, and she's getting ready and I'm putting on my suit and tie. She loves this skincare. She talks to me about it. She's on Bella Grace. Logan's on Bella Grace. Several people have said to Melissa, we actually had some people over on one night this weekend, played some rook, and I won. I even had one hand where I took every trick. I love when I do that. That's fun. It doesn't happen all the time, but it's fun when it does. We had a great time playing rook. I had not played rook in a long time. So some of you know what rook is, right? So I text some folks that live in town that are dear friends of mine. They're my parents' age, and they're good card players. But Melissa and I, we beat them. We beat them over the weekend. But our friend came over and she said to Melissa, "Boy, have you lost a lot of weight in your face?" And Melissa said, "No. The Bella trim has a way of carving your face, carving out your face and your lines right there, right in here, particularly at the jaw line." We interviewed one of the gals with Bella Grace. She talked about that. And I'm like, okay. But now Melissa's been taking it for several weeks, and several people have said, "Whoa, you've lost a lot of weight." She hasn't. It's thinning. It's giving her a really defined jawline. Logan, when he came into the studio today, his mother looked at him and said, You're getting the same thing. Logan looks like he's lost a lot of weight in his face, but they're both taking Bella Grace, which is an anti-inflammatory, the elixir. And then they're taking the Bella Trim, which is even doing more. So I'm telling you, this is all natural. Melissa's on it. Logan's on it. They're trying to get me on it, and I may soon. I'll let you know. But they're sold on it. It decreases their appetite. It's got all kinds of reported benefits to your cardiac health and other things. Melissa made me a little notes. Optimizing insulin, lowering bad cholesterol, raising good cholesterol, helps normalize your blood pressure, overall good cardiac health, helps to improve your prebiotics, lowers inflammation, regulates blood glucose levels. There you go. And then the sleep, the restorative sleep, the gummies. Melissa takes 2 of those that help her stay asleep at night. Again, that's all natural as well. And we're told they have a new product coming. And if their next product is anything like the current ones they have, well, it's going to be a home run because their products are just great. We love them. And Melissa and Logan are using a lot of them. Logan doesn't use the skincare, neither do I. I do the elixir, but they're doing the elixir, the Bella Trim, and Melissa does the skincare, elixir, Bella Trim, and sleep. She's doing all of them and swears by them. All right, MelissaHouseBG.com, MelissaHouseBG.com. Hey, if you want to make some extra money, become a ambassador. Promote it on your social media. I haven't mentioned this in a long time, but you can become an ambassador and promote this. And some of you are making a few $100s a month. Some of you are making a few $1,000s a month. So go to MelissaHouseBG.com, click that button up top, join our team, become an ambassador, start repping it, just like I do in the air every night. You just do that with your family and friends and over social media. And you can make extra income as well. It's not a joke, folks. This is a legit company with legitimate clinical trials. There's science behind this. So it's not hard to represent because it's such a great product with real science behind it. Melissa House, BG.com.